We here?
What's going on, man?
Can you hear me okay? Do I look
Yeah,
good?
always, man.
Do I look
Always
beautiful?
and forever. I don't know about that, man. You're gonna have to ask Prism Goddess
I
on that one.
mean, I feel like I look beautiful today. See, we
Oh,
both got on black today, so we can look a little slimmer, I see.
yeah, we gotta trick the camera as much as we can, man. But how you doing today?
I'm all right, man. Honestly, just excited. Last week was an amazing show, and I think it's pretty dope. We kind of keep the momentum going. Um, and I think it's really cool that we just on the fly, we just keep going.
Oh man, look, I tell everybody, it's much more than just hopping on a camera to the world, right? There's a lot of prep, there's a lot of dedication. Sometimes we wake up and we don't feel 100, right?
Man,
But we feel indebted and we feel like we owe it to the people, man. Last week we had Wiz on,
yeah,
and it was probably one of the better, if not one of the best shows that we've had on Prism guys. So shout out to Wiz for hopping on and giving us an hour of his time
absolutely.
and just spinning gems. But I got a lot of comments. I got a lot of kudos from a lot of different people. So we appreciate all that. I mean, that's what actually motivates us to get on here and week in and week out just to hopefully bring the fire.
Yeah, especially I like the fact we talk about things that people are uncomfortable talking about. And I think that's what makes it fun for me because I always like, you know how I like to do it. I like to be very what do they call that? When you like to be confrontational or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But I like it though.
Yeah. No, I mean definitely the word is eluding me too right now.
What
But we
up?
definitely we definitely keep it 100 here.
Yeah.
We're always going to be it's controversial is the word that you were looking for.
Yeah.
Uh
That's what it
uh
was. See, so you helped me out though. You could have helped me out. I like to be confident. I like to be say it again.
Spicy, edgy. We see Cage Lawyer over here. And I honestly, man, I'm geeking out over here. Like for a lot of you guys that don't know, I think Prism God has actually been keeping the secret sauce. Like he always wants to come out crystal clear on his end. I went out and got me a new camera to showcase myself, right? And all my
Yeah,
Houston hat glory. Like you see my Houston drip today, man. Like
I
this
see it.
hat just came in today and I was really excited to share it with the people, man. It's all because of Chewy, man,
That's cool.
that I wear these hats now. But definitely excited to have this new video HD
Yeah.
taking it a lot more serious. And honestly, it's all attributed to all the feedback and suggestions we've been getting from everybody.
As we continue to make this show better, man, make it fun and exciting. We got a couple of different people lined up. Today we were supposed to have Jess breaking with Jess from Bleecker Trading, but she caught COVID last minute today. So we're gonna have her in a couple weeks. But next week we're gonna have Chris Costa next week. I know you guys really know him. He's a really cool guy in the space. And I can't wait to actually interview him because it'll be the first time I actually talk to him about where he came from and what he has going on. But hey, shout
Hey,
out to Lucas Peterson. What's up from Augusta Pro Image? And they're actually, we're gonna talk about them later on. But I definitely, I appreciate your relationship, Lucas. Thank you.
Hey, I'm reaching out here to West Card Co. Man, we seeing comments from all over the place come in right now. But
Hey,
I tell you what, I hate the Rangers. Right?
yeah,
It's like that love hate relationship. But I will tell you this: if you send me a Rangers hat, I will wear it on air. Right? So that's shout out for you. If you want me in a Rangers hat, feel
yeah.
free to send it my way.
Also, send them free Rangers hats. Is what he's saying. What you need to do is hit Augusta Pro Image right here. Maybe you can get them to send you a free Rangers hat. Those are kind of like one of the guys who helped with the collaboration for the Coach Collision New Era hat. And so they're good people to know, man. That's all I can say for right now. But we're gonna bring them guys in later on. Um,
Man, I'm gonna have to reach out to Joe. Usually he's our alarm clock. He isn't on today, man. But
yeah.
maybe here in a few he'll be on to join us, man. Maybe he's having a Celtics hangover right now.
Hey, it's all good, man. Look, we got a whole lot to talk about. And I mean, honestly, before we even kind of talk about I guess some of the conversation pieces that we wanted to talk about today, I mean, what do you think about last week though? Like, how do you feel about those topics from last week that we kind of hit?
Ah, man, look, you know, when we first started this podcast, man, we really wanted to give the people as much information that we would have liked when we were coming into the space,
Yeah,
right? And you're hearing more and more about death of the hobby, death of the sports card.
yeah,
Oh man, and obviously, right, we're probably not going to see another 2001 COVID hobby, you know,
I hope
maybe I don't
so. I
know in
hope
the
we
next
do.
10 years, I don't know if in our lifetime, right? I can't go on the edge and say that we'll ever see those numbers ever again,
You
right?
seen it in the
That was
Jordan market though.
but it was a perfect storm. But you know, we were talking about the hobby before COVID, right? We talked about it during COVID, and now we're
Yeah,
talking about it post COVID, right? It's a lot harder to kind of make it, right? Before it was like throwing a pebble in the ocean, right? It was
yeah,
easy to win, right? And now you're having to get more creative. You're having to come up with different ideas and different strategies.
yeah,
And last week, not only did we give our opinion on where we felt the market was today, but
yeah.
we also gave some insights on how to move
Navigate,
forward, right?
navigate through it. Navigate
Yeah,
through it. That's the part
yeah.
that's important.
And I
I
think
mean,
one of the things that resonated, sorry, but one of the things that resonated was don't be afraid to take risk.
don't be afraid. And honestly, piggybacking off that conversation because there's so much to be said in that. And I mean, we posted a video, and I try to post strategic clips, and some of them get taken out of context. So if you're not watching us on YouTube to watch the entire show, you don't really get it. You just see bits and pieces. You just say, "Oh man, Kobe Collector, he don't sound like you know what he's talking about." But
Hmm.
if you'd have heard the whole thing, you'd have been like, "Oh, okay, now I get where we came from." But it's interesting because I talk about I think that one of the topics we're going to talk about today is the reason why we need platforms like this. We need people who are going to be problem solvers, who are going to help with bridging the gap between the older collectors and the newer collectors, and being able to say, hey, look, this worked for me, this may not work for you, won't you try something different, and we kind of go from there. But I feel like we're gonna keep talking. We got 10 minutes, but it's because we don't have a guest. So we don't have a guest, so we're gonna make the best out of this show. And without further ado, you want to start the show?
All right, let's go ahead and hit it. Hit
Let's
it.
go.
Ah, there he
Hey,
goes, man. I didn't have to check on him. What's up, Joe? Hey,
hey,
I said you usually are alarm clock, but there you go. You ready for the show? 10 minutes late, but it's okay. We're not keeping time over here.
hey, man! I appreciate Joel, man. He's one of the most consistent, loyal people, a part of the podcast, and honestly, they're the reason why we came back. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, I mean, I think going into these new topics, man. First of all, how was your weekend? I don't think I really asked that. Did I ask you that?
Oh man, father to three amazing kids.
Yeah,
I think only one of them told me Happy Father's Day, right? Out on their own, right? One of them put me on a Instagram post, right? And then the other one, I don't even think the baby, she don't even remember it was Father's Day. She looked up and she was like, "Oh, cake, food," right? So,
yeah,
I mean, like I said, just blessed by them. Obviously, spent some time with my family as well.
yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people out there that can't just look over to the right or left and say Happy Father's Day, right? They got to look up to the sky.
Yep.
And so I'm fortunate to still have my father, and you know, I'm still here for my kids, man. How about you?
Oh man, it's been a blessing. Honestly, I made a decision not to go to a show this weekend, but ultimately it's because I'm a weekend warrior going to as many shows as I can. And I felt like giving that weekend to family was important to me. So I took a break. My daughter graduated from high school, and she had her first day of orientation in college last week. So shout out to my daughter being, like I said, top 13 out of 450 graduating in her graduating class, and then turning around and then going to her first institution, and hopefully she'll continue to excel. So that was a great Father's Day gift to me, to be able to see my daughter and go over to, like, go to her orientation, because it's a blessing to be able to do those things, because back in the day I couldn't. So
Yeah.
I had fun.
I just say, man, not only is it important to spend time with family and loved ones, man, life is too short sometimes, man. You got to get out there and live your life, right?
Yeah,
And I'll be the first one to tell you, man, from the outside looking in, I saw the culture clan, right? Out there in the world at these shows week in and week out, and you guys make this stuff looks easy, right? Easy. But man, when I'm out there and I go 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks, I think I did 3 weeks in a row one time, I'm
yeah.
getting sick, right? Because
It happens.
you around a lot of germs, so I know to keep a lot of hand sanitizer, man. But it's not for the faint of heart, man, to be
Nope.
out there in the world like that, man, traveling show to show, trying to get deals and competing, right, with all the other buyers out there. Obviously, there's enough cars to go around, man, but I will say this, man. One of the reasons why we share our own personal lives during these podcasts, man, because we're real life human beings, man. We're
Absolutely.
super approachable. If you guys ever have any questions, want to take pictures with us, see us at a show and want to come say hello, maybe ask about a
You don't
trade
take
that just
pictures.
happened.
You don't take pictures.
Well,
That's
try
cool.
try to take a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, come up and ask us, right? Obviously, we're never going to sit here and say that we know everything, and what we
Nope.
say that you guys can take it to the bank. But through our experiences, through our longevity in the market, we can, give some pretty decent advice from time to time.
Yeah.
So, like I said, feel free to call us out when you feel like maybe we're off base. Hell, me and Ralph go back and forth. We don't always have to agree on everything.
Nope.
And good conversation is healthy. So if you ever feel like you can, add something or bring something to the table, feel free to reach out, man. We'll shout you guys out and we'll answer the tough questions right here on air.
Yeah, but I think the problem I think a lot of people have, in not just this space, but I think in life, period, is a lot of people will complain, but a lot of people don't try to come up with solutions. So I think that being able to talk through the problems and try to come up with solutions that we feel like make sense as to why we do this platform, right? So I don't really try to make it so just about sports or just the cards or whatever. I try to make it about real life. I try to make it about personal stories that we all have had, and it resonates with all of us, and we try to build off of that, off life experience, so we can all learn together and get better and grow. Because and especially with one of these topics today, man, I definitely think it's going to hit home and make sense. So one of the reasons why I asked you about why you was like what you do this weekend, it wasn't just about Father's Day. It was about boxing. Did you watch? Did you
Mm.
get a chance to watch the match this weekend?
Oh man, honestly, man, I thought Tank was gonna lose for a minute there,
Stop.
right?
Yeah, stop.
And then he was looking all beaten and bruised, man. He was looking like Hitch when Hitch got that allergic reaction, man. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you
He
know
he took a
what?
couple lumps. I fell asleep though, so I can't say I enjoyed it.
But I will say, man, that knockout, man, that's probably one of the most exciting things that can happen in
Yeah.
boxing and actually in combat sports in general. That kind of knockout where the dude's out cold and he's healthy, right? He didn't die, and we've seen some of that in the recent years. But hey, he got caught, and sometimes that happens.
Yep, I agree. I agree. So, I mean, so it kind of leads me to my first question for tonight is, can Javante Davis carry the next generation of boxers? Before we answer that question, I want to make sure we shout out to people who actually are watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and every other platform. Make sure you guys click and subscribe to our channel on YouTube so we can get credit and you can continue getting notifications to see my beautiful face. And I'll
Mm.
shout out to the people that's on Instagram too, who are talking to a Baller Breaks, Drake's PC, Summertime Poppy, who left an amazing message to me on Instagram. West Side, what's it? West Cards Co. And Justin Gamble. Shout out to the guys out there on the West Coast. What up, Joel? And Silver, what was it? Silver
Maroon, yeah.
Oh, you know him?
Nah, man, we got a new guest today, man.
Hey, welcome. Welcome. How
Welcome.
many Javante autos are out there? For the record, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna even attempt a lot to tell you, but I think that's one of the questions I kind of want to kind of talk about, because I feel like, first of all, I'm going to say that I believe that Gervonta Davis can carry the next generation of boxers. But what does that look like?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you
Yeah,
feel
it's
about that?
and I think we had a brief conversation about this earlier. And for a lot of you guys that haven't tuned in, and this is your first time looking at the show, me and Ralph don't talk too much during the day, right? Because we want to actually give every information. So a lot of this stuff isn't pre-rehearsed. A lot of this isn't choreographed. It isn't pre-planned. We don't have any notes in front of us that we're looking down and
But
just
I have some notes though because I got to reference things.
yeah. But
I don't want to.
nah, Coach Jay, you get all the love, man. You get all the love there, man.
Oh,
But
Coach Jay, sorry, bro. Sorry, you
yeah.
get love.
So
Sorry, bro.
so one of the topics that came up was just in regards to boxing, right? UFC has their own sports card,
Yep.
right? Line. WWE got its own sports card line. Hell,
Yep.
Star Wars has its own sports card line, right?
Yep.
Race car. But why doesn't boxing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's just as many fighters, right, in boxing, and I guess that's why MMA is kind of probably taking over as the mainstream combat sports genre out there. But man, to me, I grew up on boxing, right? Didn't necessarily grow up on MMA. Although MMA has some pretty spectacular fights and amazing finishes, but man, I think for me, the only autos I've ever seen in boxing is Floyd Mayweather. I think I saw a Canelo Alvarez, but they didn't have their own standalone product. It was in Ginter, right? And
Yeah.
Ginter kind of does pop culture, it does sports, it does boxing, it does all kinds of stuff, much more than just your traditional baseball stuff. But it's one of those things where, and maybe Tyson, man, I think Tyson probably has an auto too.
Yeah, he
But
does. He has a
in
few.
Leaf,
Him,
in Leaf.
Floyd. Yeah, I've seen a lot. I mean, we've seen a lot, but they don't have like an official product. I mean, a lot of them do pop up in the Allen and Ginter product or Tops. I feel like Tops puts out a lot more boxing stuff, and I'm hearing potentially it might be an option in the future somewhere else. But um, I think
Yeah,
boxers
he hit
need
it on the head though.
what's that?
A silver maroon. Too many governing bodies. They don't agree on much, right? That's why you
Mm,
have all these promoters and all these different networks that promote fights and show fights that collectively they would have to come together and like the NIL, right? The name, image, licensing. So there's not really a sanctioning body. It's a catch-all, right? It's like a net, and maybe that's why. And in the UFC, right? That's mandated by Dana White and his governing partners. That's probably why they have easier stream to be able to have their own product.
well, even
Makes
outside of
sense.
collectibles, I mean, what do you see that Floyd Mayweather like? I mean, is it safe to say that Floyd Mayweather may be the best businessman in the boxing game? And before that was probably what was it I forgot his name, the one that brought in Floyd. Um, you know what I'm
Bob
talking about?
Arum?
You said what?
Bob Arum?
No, 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 no. Gosh, I cannot think of his name. I'm doing bad right now, so move past it. But I feel like Floyd is probably right now, and I think Javante can move us forward. But I don't know what that necessarily looks like. But I hope that we can see collectibles like in the boxing space because I mean, when you look at one of the most coveted cards right now of all time, it's probably still the Muhammad Ali out of the Hamet Journal. I think is what it is, and I think it's Pop One is a PSA 10. I don't think we've ever seen that card sell. Like I
Okay.
don't even.
Our Artradamus said true boxing fans rather have an auto glove than card, right? And I guess that
Mm,
makes sense. I mean, maybe that's more memorabilia driven than card, man. But I don't know.
I mean,
Um,
but you know what though? Upper Deck came out with a set for Muhammad Ali that actually had a piece of his robe, a piece of his boxing glove, a piece of his
so good
shorts,
too.
his trunks. So I think that to people like Art, I'm gonna say Art, so I can't say the rest of it. Is Art. I mean, like if you're a collector, that gives you an opportunity to be able to do that. But I believe that we should see more stuff like that, especially if we're seeing UFC. And I think that I know for a while I felt like I used to hear that UFC is a lot more exciting than boxing, but I feel like you ain't watching Tank Davis.
Yeah, I think though, I mean you're Javante Davis, right? He had the fight this weekend, so obviously that's the name that comes up, man. But you have
Yep.
Ryan Garcia, you have You got Canelo, right? You got Lomachenko.
Yep,
You got Teofimo, right? You got Crawford, right? So I mean, you have all these up and coming stars, but I think one of the things that kind of takes away from it is that, like in the MMA, right? So why people gravitate so much to there is because you see the best fighting the best, right?
that's
They're
correct.
not
Yeah,
afraid to put their L on the line because at any given day, someone could beat another person, right? And in boxing, they're so scared to lose that zero, right? Where they think that that really impacts their legacy, that they don't want to fight the best of the best, right? And you'll see some of the most beloved people that go out on their sword or their shield are the ones that the public really gravitates towards. So it'd be interesting to see, and maybe boxing is more memorabilia driven. But I'm
I
gonna tell you what.
disagree. I
But
disagree.
I tell you what though, I'd like to see a dual auto, maybe even if they're beefing, right? Like a Ryan Garcia, uh, Tank
That's what I'm
Davis
saying.
on a
You
Prism Gold
and you
101, right?
and
Or
you
Prism Gold
no, not
out of
even
10.
no. Forget Prism Gold. I want it on a Tops Dynasty. I'll take a Tops Dynasty
Mm,
football. I'm sorry, boxing card with Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis. I will take that all day. I'll take a Floyd Mayweather dual auto of McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. I'll take that. I
yeah.
think that there's definitely a demand for those things. I mean, I'm kind of piggybacking off what Cage Laura said. He actually brings up a really good point. Ali is tough because you have 10 different people that'll say 10 different things that is his rookie card. But just so we're clear, the 61 Hamet Journal is technically his first card because it was a card that was issued before everything else. It was a cutout out of a magazine, but it's coveted as his rookie card. But I mean, maybe you could say a pack pooled card. Maybe later on, he did come out with some other cards later on. I've had a lot of those cards back in. I may still have a few, but I feel like I had a lot of those cards back when I was collecting them. So I definitely was sought after them. And I had a Floyd Mayweather rookie card too. I bet you ain't had
Yeah.
one of those.
I graded it 9.5/10. So
Oh, well, it's not 9.5/10, but it was a 9.5. But yeah, I guess you did grade. No, I think I graded that card.
okay, I'll let you take the credit.
That's fine. All right, so piggybacking off Coach Jay, he says each title has its own rules. Nothing better than boxing for American sports history. I think UFC MMA is a bit more popular with the younger generation compared to boxing. I agree, but I think that's why we need people like Gervonta Davis to be able to carry the next generation of boxers because I think it's important if you look at how he carries himself and how I feel like there is a tie to the younger generation for him, and I think that can resonate with the new hopefully boxer fans. Um, but I don't know. What do we need to do to make boxing more exciting and make it better?
I mean, you're asking $1 million question, $1 billion question. HBO pay-per-view went away because viewership went away, right? It's almost like you see the WNBA's kind of viewership go up.
Yeah,
Boxing has gradually started to go down, but you still see some of the fights that the fans want to see that they're starting to put together. You saw it with the Crawford's Spence fight, right? You saw it with the Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia fight. And so, as long as they stay true to trying to make the best fights possible, like the generational fights, quote unquote, I think we'll start to see some of those casual boxing fans come back. I think if Gervonta Davis Lomachenko fight is in the near future, you kind of capitalize on that momentum. And you carry it into the future. Hell, even if you see a Crawford Canelo fight in the near future, I think that'll also bring in some pay-per-view numbers as well, man. But honestly, look, Gervonta Davis, right? Fun fact, right? The shoes that he was wearing in the fight were $100,000 shoes, right? And so, man, what about a Topps Dynasty card that has a cutout of those shoes? What does that go for if the shoes cost 100 grand?
agreed. Agreed. I mean, yeah, I definitely think there's an opportunity. See, so actually, you know what? Somebody said the name. Remember, I was trying to figure out what the name was. Remember I was trying to say what the name was?
Oscar?
Yep, it was
Okay.
Oscar. It was Oscar to Floyd, Floyd to Javante.
Now
Very
Floyd to
interesting.
Canelo.
Yeah, Canelo, correct. All right, so look, I think we have a special guest who wants to jump in real quick. We wasn't expecting this. Is kind of impromptu. We've been trying to get this guy to get on the show. Now he's motivated to get on the show. We got him hyped to get on the show after all this time, and hopefully we could bring some energy, some more energy to the show. So without further ado, Cage Lawyer, look at his freaking crispy screen. He's got a
Hey,
super HD screen. How does that happen? Let me put you in the
Nice,
middle.
right? It's an iPhone 8.
Oh, that's it.
you got a brick.
That's all. It's an
You got
That's
iPhone
it's
17.
an
All
iPhone.
right, well,
Fun one.
Uh,
on your boxing, why it doesn't work. You ready? It's not that boxing is not exciting. Everybody loves boxing. It's not that UFC is more exciting than boxing. Boxing doesn't have a league. So manufacturers have a tough time making boxing cards because they can't go to a league and do, hey, here's a licensing for everyone in the league. Here's a
Of
licensing for
course.
everyone. So UFC, they did it. They can't do that with boxing. I mean, WBF, IBF, Ring Magazine card. I mean, like there'd be ways around it, but it's just tougher. It would be a heavier lift for a manufacturer. That's the problem with boxing cards.
Well,
And,
it
and there
goes
isn't a
back to what
boxing
Silver
union either,
said.
right?
It's actually going back to what Silver Maroon said. Too many governing bodies. They don't agree on much. They can't get anything organized. But what's funny about that is they're missing out on money. They're leaving money on the table, which is why I actually was crazy. That's why I posed this question, because I do feel like Gervonta Davis can carry the next generation of boxers. But what I would like to see him do is figure out a way to implement more business, figure out a way to take boxing to the next level and say, hey, look, I not only am a great boxer, but hey, I'm so good, I decided to create a league, and I said, hey, we're going to govern this, and we're going to try to figure out a way to make more money for our space. That's to me, that's taking things to the next level. And then now maybe there's more kids that maybe we get a chance to see more boxing matches. I know I've seen OTE do like underground boxing matches, and I know we see little boxing matches here and there, but there has to be a way to govern these things to where we can actually see more boxing matches and see more money, filtered through these different spaces. So it'd be nice to see for the future.
Yeah. I mean, one thing you could do maybe like, for up and comers, an Olympic set, the Olympic boxers, right? You have to have some kind of an event, you know what I mean? You have to have something where, a manufacturer come in and get a bunch instead of just, because they can get a license with one person. You can get stickers from one boxer, two boxers, you name it, but it's tough to do.
Man.
So that's it.
Yeah, I think at one point they actually, and I'm talking more mainstream boxing, right? They were gonna take the top 6 fighters in the division, right, and let them all fight each other, and at the end, right, have them fight to be the unification champion for that weight class, right? And I thought that was pretty cool. It's almost like a round robin amongst them. And then they fought each other at the end. So like I said, something like that would be kind of cool too, kind of a tournament of champions.
Yeah.
But again, they're all so scared to lose that zero, man. I don't know if that'll ever happen. And again, there's too many promoters and too many governing bodies that'll actually get in the way of that.
Correct. All right. So Manny did have autos, and I appreciate it, Nicholas. Appreciate the love, man. Appreciate everybody chiming in. And we appreciate, man, Cage Lawyer just popping up as a surprise guest. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Man, we sparked something in them, man.
Got home a little earlier than usual.
Hey, look, it's fine though, because I would like to bring up a conversation piece that would hopefully spark you to be like, I got to get in on this conversation. And hopefully I got one today that you'll be like, man, you know what? This gets me fired up. So without further ado, the next topic of today is, did Jason Tatum get snubbed?
No, Drew Holiday did.
Hey, man, that dude played out of his mind, man. I think I said it on one of our other shows that the X factor in game 2 of the finals was Drew Holiday, right? Obviously, Porzingis game 1, right? But not enough can be said about the impact. And I think Embiid said that the Bucks just gifted, right, Boston the finals this year, the championship.
Yeah, safe to say.
How good he is. And I think I was talking to in my Uber ride in Detroit. My Uber driver was an assistant coach in the league, and he was a scout, right? You never know who you're going to get in the car with. and he said that Boston had 4 to 5 elite level defenders, and you have that in Drew Holiday,
That's
who
correct.
Minnesota couldn't put Anthony Edwards and just forget about everyone else on Kyrie. You put Drew Holiday on Kyrie, and Kyrie probably had the worst series he had in the entire playoff run, right?
Yeah.
So not enough can be said about that dude. But in regards to the snub, man, everyone leading into this game, and they said Jaylen Brown, there's no way he could be the MVP after game 4, right? And you saw Tatum, after he put up 31, he almost put up a triple double in the clincher, and his face went from jubilation to like somebody pissing his Wheaties, man. And like I said, they've been really trying to pit them two against each other, and I don't know if there's a lot of beef between the two of them. But man, it takes away from what happened in regards to the series and how good of a team Boston is, man. And in the finals, I can honestly say that Tatum, um, he played better in the finals, right? And I almost think that in regards to why Jaylen Brown got it, cumulative for the entire playoff run, Jaylen Brown was the man, right? And I think that's the reason why he got it, in my opinion.
You
Cage,
ready?
you got it.
All right. So, saying that Tatum deserves it, he had triple double 3-point in the Clinton. Hardaway was an active weapon for them. Tim Hardaway Jr. in Game 4. Yeah, he had 5 straight 3-pointers, but it was garbage time, and Tatum was adding on stats to try to get that MVP. It was
Exactly.
funny to watch when the game was basically out of hand already. That you knew what he was doing, but it was almost like you had to pick somebody. If Luka didn't completely shit the bed, I would have been voting for Luka to win the MVP because his stats, even in a loss, because he was the most valuable player in the series, because Dallas wouldn't even. Brown won it because he was consistently above average. It wasn't like he was fantastic. It wasn't like he was, it was one of the worst finals from a watchability standpoint in my lifetime. I mean, last year's wasn't so good either, but it was pretty bad, and there were no standout, offensive performances. There are some good stories there. I mean, the MVP in Boston is probably going to be the dentist who has to work on Derek White's face because, man, he got busted up. But I mean, that guy, talk about a role player, really, really providing depth, providing defense. Just, he blocked lively, like just turn him around, right? This guy's 6'4", blocking a 7-footer. You got Drew Holiday playing his role, right? I mean, the depth they have on that team was amazing. There was no real standout, and Tatum, I don't buy Tatum. Tatum trying to force himself into like a Kobe, 2.0, and he's just not that guy, right? I mean, if you give me what Tatum is instead of Kobe, I mean, I don't know, what's Tatum? I can't even give you a comparison. Jaylen Brown might be like, Kawhi.
Yeah.
Tatum
that's a good comparison.
Not Kobe.
I think that's a really good comparison. Yeah, I'm not a buyer of Jason Tatum either. I've never really been. I felt like he was more of he's always been more of a diva basketball player to me. I felt like his best playoff run that actually made me feel differently about him was the first series that he played versus Miami, probably like maybe 3 years ago, when Miami took it to Game 7, and I can't remember how it ended, but that series, Tatum balled that series, and but you're absolutely right though, Mark, when you hit it on the head. Jaylen Brown played better this whole playoff series. I mean, the whole playoffs. I think he was the number one guy. I think he led the team, which is why I think that's why he got the MVP, is because he's the jump starter for the team. And then Drew Holiday was the guy that kind of was gluing them all together to make it all make sense. Derek White was out there doing whatever he wanted to do. It was like they had so many weapons that were working for them at any given moment that it just made their team to like, it just, honestly, I kind of feel bad for Dallas because I felt like I would have rather almost seen Denver make it to the finals. I would actually,
matchups matter, right?
I think it would have been, the matchups definitely matter. It would have matched up way better. It probably would have been a more exciting finals, right? And I think it probably would have got to 7 games because I think the question would always be is who's going to stick Joker? I don't think they would have had a solution for Joker. I think Joker, because here's the thing. I think that in a scenario in this scenario, you bring in Joker, and now you got Porzingis. Porzingis gets injured again. I think he gets injured again somehow, some way, because Joker's a tank and he does whatever he wants to do. And I just think they have a lot of pieces in Denver that would have matched up way better in this finals. And I know ultimately I was rooting for Minnesota to win it all, and I wanted Dallas to be my, what did I call? They were kind of like my underdogs to win it all, because I'm for the
horse,
hobby. Yeah, I'm for the hobby. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people invested into Luka. There's a lot of people invested into Ant-Man at this moment. So I'm for the hobby. I want to see people win. I want to see the underdogs do great. I've never been a big believer of Jason Tatum, even in 2017. I think he's a great basketball player. I mean, I think he's a good basketball player. I'm not gonna say great. I'm gonna say he's a good basketball player. But like you hit it on the head too, as Cage is. It's a stat stuffer. At that point, it's like, hey, we already blew him out by 20 points. All right, so just keep doing your thing. Maybe you'll get lucky. You'll get MVP.
Yeah.
So
I mean, listen, from a hobby standpoint, pretty straightforward, right? Because this was a finals where I got to tell you, I was actually looking forward to it, because you didn't have Steph, have LeBron, you didn't have Joker, you didn't, so you knew it was going to be new. You had the hobby because people got money invested in Luka, people got money invested in Tatum to maybe really take that next. And unfortunately, at the point, you learn a lot about Luka. All right, you're going to learn whether or not he's really going to be able, whether you should be. In a couple months, you're going to see him come back. The Olympics, all that stuff. Next year, he's got to come back in shape. A lot of people didn't see this,
absolutely.
Right? But, I mean, this is a
30
lot
pounds
of games
less
for him. A lot of games for him.
Less.
Game one, I was watching it with my son in the first quarter of game one. It was close. It was like 19-18. It was before the Celtics, started belonging. The first quarter, it's probably 7.5 minutes in. I should go find the video of it, and he's out there raising his hand to the bench. He's signaling that he didn't take him out, and took the every defensive hand. Not was he not just out of shape, and part of it is he plays almost every game. So it's tough. It's a tough haul. It takes a toll on his body, right? He's not 100% right. He's not going to make excuses, but he's just he's not in shape. You got to be amazed by how Joker does what he does, and the shape he appears to be in. I guess he's in better shape than he looks, right?
Exactly.
But Luka, I mean, listen, you have the ability to say Luka's put up some real gaudy numbers. If you want to be positive on Luka, you can be. If you want to be negative on him, you can be. It just depends on what kind of on him. If you want to be positive on him, you say he's 25. Someone like Jordan, LeBron, they didn't win their first championship until 27. He already made it to the finals. Yeah, he didn't win, but he's made like 5 straight teams.
But
he's
but
put
you
up
said something though. But I will say this: you said something though, Cage, that kind of strikes me right now. He's 25 years old and he's not in shape.
I mean, it's what Coach Jay said right here.
Let's think about this now. You're 25 years old and you're not in shape.
Man, he's living the good life, man. What did Lil Wayne say? Don't say I'm gaining weight. Tell me I'm getting paid, right? He's getting paid, man.
But you know something? I respect Luka's game. I think he's a very talented player, but he definitely has to come in better shape. He needs to lose about 30 pounds. And I think that if he's going to win a championship, I said it before, that I think I'm not going to say he can't be the number one guy, because I after seeing him this year, I definitely think he can be the number one guy, but he has to be able to put his foot on the gas the entire game.
That's what Coach Jay said. He said he was exposed. Luka was exposed in the finals, right?
Yeah, he's not a defender.
A lot of what the commentators said that they wanted Minnesota to do, right, and make Luka play defense. Luka didn't have a choice but to try to play defense against Boston, right?
Correct.
He could take a lot of plays off, and so that vulnerability wasn't exposed against the Timberwolves. But you can be rest assured that Boston exposed that. So yeah, he's gonna have to go back and perfect his craft. The other thing that I will say, right? I don't think I've ever said, man, I gotta go out and buy a Jason Tatum card, right? But after this playoff run, I have said, and I did go out and pick up a Jaylen Brown card. So, I mean, to me, that kind of says a lot.
But
everyone's gonna be selling them. Everyone's gonna be selling them now. So you get them cheap.
I feel like we lost you a little bit, but I'm
I
sorry.
said everyone's going to be
Did you
selling
catch that,
now, so
Mark?
you'll get them cheaper.
I think he said it.
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing: you compared him to Kawhi Leonard. So I don't know if Kawhi's cards. He has 3 championships. And no, he has 2 or 3. I think he's 2, right? And his cards, his cards don't sell. So I don't know. Maybe you don't collect his cards. I have no idea. Maybe I don't have the answers for that. But yeah, that's why I figured it was 2, but I can't remember exactly. I know one in Toronto, one in San Antonio.
San Antonio. Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. So now I'm gonna move on to the next topic because I don't want to run over since we got a special guest today. The next topic.
Listen, before you go out and buy Tatum cards, though, before he goes to the next topic, take a look. Card Chronicles. He posted it's finals with at least 200 goals. Worst shooter in the finals history for someone who's actually been there more than one finals.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? All right, so
a lot of misses. Sorry, go ahead, go to the next one.
Next topic. Is the hobby for kids anymore? The hobby for kids anymore. So I wanted to kind of bring up a topic that I felt like made a lot of sense. I go to a lot of shows every weekend, and I know the collectible space is all based upon our childhood, right? It's all based upon our childhoods, fueled by our childhood. 2021 was, oh my gosh, I remember when I was a child, opened up a pack. You know what I'm saying? I love this. Now it's just a room for of us, and I don't and boxes cost this. But the impressive part is the kids who are actually there have a lot of this. So I mean, what are you guys seeing? I mean, what do you feel? I mean, it's so much going on. There's so much to talk about. We could talk about. Some people feel like it's gambling. The hobby's turning into gambling. With the breaking so it's so much to be said about its hobby for kids anymore. But I think it's a really interesting topic to be able to talk about if we can put it together real quickly and make it make sense. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
I think we've had a conversation in regards to how to build long-term sustainability for the hobby, right? Yeah. And it's not going to keep on bringing in adults, right? Middle-aged men into this, right? Because we already have enough of those in the realm of this collectiverse. And so in order to kind of push it to the future, we have to find new and creative ways to actually push that agenda, which is why shows like Culture Collision, right? That are a little more exciting, right? That bring a lot more than just sitting around at a card show all day, right? Making it fun. That's why things like Collecticon, right? Those kinds of events that are more than just tables and vendors set up. They bring a lot more entertainment, right? Because
Fanatics Fest is going to probably do that too, but we can talk about that too. And I'm pretty sure Kate's going to say something too about that. I'm sure, because I'm going to say something.
So I just say, like, the attention span, right? Being a father of 3 kids and, seeing them grow up, their attention spans are so narrow, right? So that it's almost like they have perpetual squirrel moments where they just can't stay focused on one thing, right? And then, I mean, when you see the kids at the card shows, right, they're not really coming around the tables to really look at cards. Yeah, they get the wow factor when they ask about a card and it's $100 and they're like, man, I can't afford that, right? They're more entertained by these trade up challenges that really nobody wants to do, right? Because honestly, the last time when I saw a kid come through and did try to do a trade up challenge, and then his dad wanted to do a trade up challenge too, and it's just like, dude, you're too damn grown to be doing trade up challenges. Like, how does that make sense? But I think that it isn't for the kids because the entry point is so high. Unless their parents have a lot of money, they're not going to really stay in the hobby for that long. Unless they're collecting base cards, and a lot of the times they want to have the next card that's going to be $1 million, and for all intents and purposes, that isn't going to be your run-of-the-mill base card, right? Not in our lifetime, at least.
Cage, how you feeling? I think we lost him. Can you hear him?
Mm-mm.
I think we lost. I think your audio went out for some reason.
Yeah, I wanted to hear his take on it, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to. All right, so yeah, we can't hear
Got to
you.
go out and come back in. Something
Yep, go
happened. He got
back
a
out and
phone
come
call.
back in. All right, so I guess I'll talk about the hobby. So I kind of we talked about a lot of different shows like that you mentioned, right? There's a lot of shows. I feel like for many years we've made shows and we've went to shows that accommodate the older generation of collectors. But I think a lot of times, you know, when you have shows like Culture Collision, and I'm not trying to be biased because I know what our intentions are, was purely focused on what the next collectors are going to look like and what they're going to be like and what they may like, and not necessarily what current collectors necessarily like. Um, and I think that it's safe to say, like shows like us, and we're actually a special guest. Chris Coster is going to be here next week. People like him, you can even put Hobby Slam. We're going to be there this weekend. I know they have a different vibe for their show as well. I think having different elements at different shows, and we've talked about this in the past, I think that's what helps to aid in creating an experience for the kids. But in terms of the kid, like to me, I feel like I miss when boxes were $150.
I miss when they were $50.
So there you go. Like, and I mean, I know that I do. So I think initially when Fanatics came out and they said they were going to do like direct to consumer, I think that's what they were talking about. Remember something like that. So direct to consumer, being able to get the cards directly to the consumer, allow them to be able to, the collectors or whoever wants to open it to be able to buy it. Yeah, of course, that can play out totally different later on, because maybe somebody buys all the inventory and they resell it anyway, whatever. But it gives us an opportunity to be able to buy it. I like that aspect of being able to go buy a box of Prizm basketball and be able to open up a case with my son or best by myself and actually not have to feel bad about it.
Well,
Now I bought a case of Prizm. Last time I bought a case of Prizm, it cost me like $12,000.
oof. Yeah, nobody has $12,000. Not in my neck of the woods, not
Yeah,
in my ecosystem.
yeah, it cost me $12,000, and my best card was
But
worth $800.
and that's the sad part.
Yeah,
Right? Is that the ROI on it just makes it absurd, and which is why group rates is actually probably the number one way to open up a box these days,
correct.
because you're not losing your tail. But even some of those, if you buy enough spots, you're going to be into it pretty
Definitely
deep,
gonna lose. Yep,
right?
exactly.
But I mean, I remember the days where the most expensive case was $1,500, right? The most expensive box of cards was $500,
Yeah,
right? I remember going into a case, me, Gerald, right, Windy City Sports Cards, and Dylan, right. He was Chris Paul collector, one of the biggest Chris Paul collectors that the world has ever known, right? We all three went into this case for $1,500. I think I pulled the best card out of there. It was a dual numbers piece of Jordan and LeBron, right? That was pretty amazing to pull. But again, that entry point at that point was absurd, right?
yeah,
And now we're seeing $4,000 boxes of national treasures, right? We're seeing cases, right? Briefcases of Flawless being open for $20,000. Like, who has that kind of money, right? And those are the cards that everybody wants,
yeah,
right? They don't want a freaking $2 base card of Victor Wembanyama, right? They want the $30,000 one or the opportunity for that. That's
yeah.
what's sexy. So I think if we bring the sexy back, and we capture that attention span of kids, I think we'll be all right, man.
Hmm. Cage.
Can you hear me, guys? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
yes,
got
we
you
can hear
now.
you.
Sorry about that. Sometimes iPhone 8s die really fast. They got hot in my hand. It was like it was like it's crackling. So I did an episode on this. It's fun. Is the hobby still for kids? The episode title was "The Hobby is a Multiverse." You got your Miles Morales fans out there, and it's something that kind of I've thought about a lot over the last couple of years as post-COVID expansion of everything in the hobby, from shows that we go to, the kind of the way that we consume content, the way that we open cards, the way that we view cards, the
Yes.
way that we share our cards, and so the long answer is yes. It is for kids, but only a segment of it is for kids. And that's kind of what I mean by the multiverse, right? The hobby, when I was a kid, when you guys were kids, when, I mean, obviously I'm older than you both, but when I was a kid, the hobby was pretty limited. There weren't that many cards. The shows were like the Elks Lodge, or there wasn't anything fancy. There definitely wasn't anything like a Fanatics Fest, or any Culture Collision or anything crazy, right? But you were able to basically just go to your LCS, buy some packs, open the packs. If you got something cool, great. If you wanted to bring it to the card show and sell it, or sell it to your LCS. But now let's take it in different ways, right? So we can talk about the shows in a second, but the cards, the hobby for the cards first. I believe there are two competing universes of the hobby. Number one is breaking. And number two is everything else, right? The collectors, the collecting of cards. You can even say a third is kind of what goes on at shows, selling to repacks and all that stuff. But I take shows to its own thing. It used to be like, the hobby's doomed because repacking and all of this crazy, breaking is going to just kill it, right? Because someone's going to come in, they're going to buy into a break, they're going to lose money, they're going to buy a huge box of wax, they're going to lose money, and they're never going to come back. I used to think that. I used to think, all right, you know what? You're not going to be able to bring somebody in and have them be a collector, have them have the love for the hobby that you guys have, that I have, the ability to want to hang on to cards and hold them for decades, right? But I used to think, breaking was going to kill that. Now I just think they run on parallel paths. And I think there's room for both, right? It's sort of like the rise of sports betting. It's sort of like the rise, like it used to be, if you went to the office and around the water cooler, you guys know what that is, right? You're just talking to your coworkers, water cooler talk, right? So, it was like if one of your coworkers came to the water cooler and was like, oh man, I put this 14-team parlay in last night. I was so close to hitting you. We'd all be like, look at this degenerate. We got to fire this guy. Like, what the hell is going on? Now it's legit. Now it's like, that's commonplace. Everybody's putting in a 14-team parlay for $5.
Or is the bookie going to come get him and break his leg?
Yeah,
right?
yes.
That was unheard of to be gambling like that mainstream outside of Vegas.
Yeah, so breaking is sort of, following suit with that, right? It's just a different way of hobbying. It's not one or the other. It's not, you can have both, right? And I'm not a breaking fan. You know what I mean? Like, I open cards with my son every Friday. When I was a kid, that's how we did it. You open up the boxes. When I did UFC stuff in 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, I would buy cases and open them. I was almost like a de facto breaker, but it was because I knew in the community, okay, this guy collected Nick Diaz. This guy collected, Stipe Miocic. And when I got him, I would send them a message and say, okay, this is everything I got of Stipe. This is how much it's worth. I'll give you it for 80% of that. It wasn't even a risk. It was like, they knew what they were getting ahead of time. I was opening cases and basically distributing it out to the people who collected the different fighters. That's not breaking now. Breaking's, big business, big industry. And it's only going to grow because Fanatics needs it too. You know what I mean? So, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. The interesting part for kids, right, is how do you get kids involved, right? Because kids are going to see that side of the hobby, just like you talked about, Mark, with, they're going to see the flawless briefcases and they're going to see this breaking. They want this Wemby that's worth 30 grand. Well, I mean, what I have to tell my son is, you don't start off, he's like a watch kid. He wants to buy a watch. I'm like, you don't start off with a Rolex. Like you got to build up to that. You're not going to start with that $30,000 Wemby card. And, you probably shouldn't ever get a $30,000 Wemby card. But the point is, there are levels, and you have to play in the level you're going to play in. And ultimately, if you play long enough, you can trade up, or you can stay here long enough to build up that collection. My collection didn't start with, I started with 87 Topps base cards, not, Babe Ruth cards. I mean, right. How it is, right? So, I get that argument, right? But, I think there's a spot for everybody in this. It's funny. I'm hopeful. I want to see what Fanatics does with this, the new like Topps Chrome NBA and NFL that is going to come out.
It's coming out. Yeah.
Excited.
I really hope that it is at a price point that's not like Prizm, not even like Optic. I really hope it's like what they did with like Bowman University.
Bowman, right?
$100-something.
Oh, it's not going to be that cheap, right?
Man.
They're not going to be Bowman University.
Man.
Maybe Bowman Chrome baseball, right?
Okay,
but not
$250.
Bowman University.
But even $250 instead of, like as long as it's $250, that's what it's actually going to cost, and it's not going to be $250 that people are marking up to $800. That's accessible, and you still have a shot to get something good in there and the whole deal. And before we pivot to that stuff and the whole deal, the shows, just like there's a hobby for everybody, there's, breaking, if that's what you want to do, collecting, if that's what you want to do, you want to hold old, crusty, 100-year-old baseball cards, you can, right? The shows, I really do believe there's room for any type of show.
I agree.
What's funny is there are different things that go on at different shows. So you go to the Chantilly show or the Philly
Yeah.
show, it's a lot of autographs, a lot of vintage, a lot of traditional old Northeast kind of collecting, right?
Mhm.
You go to the Dallas show and it's a lot of repacking, modern, flipping, a lot of more trade up challenge type of stuff. There are shows that do memorabilia. I believe that the Fanatics Fan Fest is going to be less of a card show and more of kind of an industry summit mixed with athletes signing autographs. I think people are going to be surprised. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But I think people are going to be surprised. It's not going to be a card show. I mean, there are card people who are going to be there. They're going to have a little area, but I don't think it's going to be anything like any of the card shows. And what you've done with Culture Collision, it's a show like no one else does. I mean, basketball games. Think about if you really want to do boxing. Maybe there's a boxing tournament.
A celebrity boxing.
We've entertained those ideas. I mean, OTE actually, like I said, OTE has boxing matches at Overtime Elite. So it's some things we definitely talked about. I've had some collectors reach out to me say, "Yeah, I don't really like him like that, but I'm really in the box if you want to do something together."
Then you get Panini to do that, and they're licensing cards and making Panini boxing, Culture Collision Boxing League.
Hey, there you go. Or if OTE does their own thing, OTE do their own boxing league, and they start the thing.
Yep.
Just OTE.
But imagine if you would have had a Seabless versus Santiago celebrity boxing match instead of a 3-on-3 tournament.
we talked about so much. We talked about so much leading up into that situation that hey, it just kind of worked itself out and it just smoothed over. But I will say this in terms of the youth, and this is something that kind of bothers me a little bit, and even with myself, is when I first came to this space, I didn't have. I didn't have money, and I'll be very, 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 very transparent. So what bothers me is the lack of I don't think we really appreciate money the same way that in regular fields, because if you say the numbers that we say in the hobby in any other space, it's like you paid $30,000 for what? You paid $12,000 for what?
Yep.
I bought a case of Prizm for $12,000. My recoup on that was probably less than $3,000. If I told somebody I spent $12,000 on some cards and didn't know what was going to be in that box, people are going to be like, "What? Why did you do that?" And so all right. So when it comes to kids, right? Here's my problem with the kids. They walk around with $5,000, $10,000 cards, and they say, "Yeah, everybody has a $5,000. No matter what the card is, it's $5,000 to $10,000, and if it's a kid that has it, it's $5,000 to $10,000." To me, it's if I'm 10 years old and I got $10,000 in cards, I'm like, God, that's a down payment on your first house. that's you could buy a plot of land. You can get an acre or two. That's to me, that's the only problem when it comes to kids, because as we're getting into, like you said, the kids want to see the $30,000 Wemby. Yeah, that's great, but the problem is I just hate that. Man, from a business aspect of it, I feel like we can do better and educate and do a better. I think we should do a better job at education.
My son is 16, right? And every now and then he'll come downstairs and he'll ask me, "Man, what's the most expensive card you have right now?" Right? And there's a different emotion. There's a different kind of reaction if I tell him, $2,000, right?
Yeah.
Or if I tell him $40,000, then he's like, the 40,000, he wants to see it. He wants to hold it, right? Yep. The $1,000, $2,000, he's like, right? You can do better, right? And so I think we're in a microwave generation, and we just don't see that, right? In just sports cards, right? We see that in every industry.
We do.
We see that in the working, the working industry. We see that everywhere, where it's not cool unless it costs so much money, right? It's not cool unless we see somebody else with it, or right at work they go in for 6 hours and they want to be the CEO or the manager, right? So it's like, man, I come from the days of you work hard, right, and good things happen. Now it's like you want good things to happen before you work on
Oh, there are shortcuts. There are shortcuts everywhere. Shortcuts in the hobby, right? I mean, listen,
them.
it's funny because I think a lot of that is social media. I think a lot of it is YouTube. I think a lot of it is just instant gratification, right? I mean, what we're talking about. If you go back to the '80s, I remember going into my local card store and seeing a 52 tops mantle, and it was in one of those thick, 1 inch thick lucite screw downs. It probably get altered grading now, but it was
Yeah.
$1,000. I was like, oh, I'd love to have that car. That'd be great, but I didn't have $1,000, and I didn't have $1,000, not even close to $1,000. But I was
Yeah.
buying packs of cards, and I was, happy with my Bo Jackson Future Stars 87 tops, which was like my best card at the time. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be able to buy that mantle, but the allure of it now is a couple things. The people who are held out by our hobby, they're making money, they're making moves, they're doing these challenges, they're buying and they're flipping and they're making money and they're driving Lambos and they're doing all. I mean, there was a Lambo giveaway even, right? And the barrier to entry, there's none now, and they
You
seem
know,
breaking. It's so like, hey, I'm gonna put my couple bucks in and boom, I can hit it big too, just like these guys are,
Yep.
and that.
some of the fondest memories I have as a collector growing up, right? Was going to like the local card store and picking up a Beckett,
Yep,
right? And looking at the little arrows going up and looking at the little arrows going down,
yep,
right? And then looking in the Beckett's and seeing what the most expensive card was, right? And typically it was the older cards that were bringing in, right, the high number of what the card was worth. And honestly, that was the most like entertaining thing that I could do as a collector, because I always wanted to, right, they would showcase some cards every month that were either released
yep,
or what's trending up, right?
yep.
And I remember growing up, right, how I got started collecting Kobe was he was typically the one that was on the must have kind of checklist, right? And so I would go in and I would actually get the card, put it next to the picture, and see how many of the pictures I could get, right? And so for me, that was some of the funnest stuff that you could do. Nowadays, I mean, I guess you could see like alts up and down move, like ladder movers, right? And you could kind of see, but they're not really showcasing, what the
So,
biggest
Mark, you got a
cards are.
16-year-old kid, right? There's no more
Yeah.
Beckett magazine. I mean, Dr. Beckett,
No.
he's got to be rolling over in his grave about what happened at Beckett, and the dude's not even dead yet. But so, what do you tell your 16-year-old son that the card they should be going after what do you want, right? So, I mean, back then, when you were talking about this, there were cards that were produced that you wanted to own. There were
Mhm.
cards that were produced that you wanted to keep, right? What's being chased now that
Mm,
you actually want to put away for 30 years? I submit to you, nothing. I don't think
nothing.
they're actually chasing the cards. It's no longer that commodity. What they're chasing is the ability to get something that they can double their money on and put their money back
Exactly.
into the machine. So
Since
I
now,
think,
yep.
part of the problem is, that what's being made is sort of junk and there's too much of it. You know what I mean?
It's a new junk era.
So what do you want to collect? And and maybe part of that, I think you talked about it, educating the kids. If you ask my son right now, and because it's, in the news, which card of mine he wants the most, right? And I mean, I got some fun stuff. You know what I mean? Like if he was smart, he would pick another card. But he doesn't say this, which is what
Mm,
he could say. You know what he says? He says this.
Hey, there you go.
fuck
He's
face.
11, and he thinks it's funny to see a curse word on a
Did,
card.
did you
Right.
see the new ones that they just came out? I think it's Jackson Holiday with his fun face, right?
That's why. That's why. And I mean, so I like that, but it's still, I bring that up because there's so much more gimmick now
Mhm.
than quality card,
I
than
agree with
card that
that.
you want to actually go after, right? I
Yeah,
mean, so I don't know how to fix that. That's the problem because they're a machine and they just got to keep the
I
machine
agree.
going. So
Yeah, I think the only thing you can do is continue to come out with conversation pieces that are like this, that actually, hopefully, a kid will watch and be like, you know what, I understand exactly what Cage was talking about or Kobe
Yeah.
Collector was talking about, and say, oh man, I get that. Because literally at shows, what we see kids do? I want that color blast. I want that
Mm.
downtown. Oh, I want that. The only reason they want it is because the repackers paying them 120% for it,
yep, not because they
Mhm.
want to own it.
not because
Guys,
they want to own it.
I'm gonna
It's
jump
just
off. I'm gonna leave you with one thing. I saw Gemrate, Ryan. He does the little, like, you see the monthly This is how many cards PSA graded, this is how many cards Beckett graded, that kind of stuff. But another thing that he came out with this week, I was going to put it in my news, but I didn't, was right now, Wemby has more cards graded already than Giannis does. He has more cards graded than Steph does.
Combined, I think, right?
And it's insane. And his rookies are not even done being like, Optic just came out. You know what I mean? So think of how many cards are going to be graded. The difficult part about that, Mark, and again, I'll let you go. I'll jump off and let you guys talk about this or whatever else you chat about, is you wanted to collect Kobe, right? Because there were no shortage of Kobe cards, but by comparison, there's so fewer Kobe cards than you like this one, you like the finest, or you like this, and you wanted to buy Kobe. That was your guy. You were going to own that card and watch Kobe get better and win championships and win rings, and you were going to be right in the whole deal. If kids do that now with Wemby, I mean, the Prizm PSA 10 is down like 50% already from when it first came out, and that's the card that you're going to want to own. What's the other crap? Hoops. I mean, what are they, So the difficult part is, if you're a kid, you can't go into it the same way that we did, which is I'm going to pick my guy, even if it's Kobe or if it's Marbury or if it's Iverson, and I'm going to buy the cards and I'm going to watch them do well and I'm going to own them and I'm going to be a collector. Because even if you get the right guy, they're making so much of it.
So much
junk.
See,
but I wonder what this new Fanatics line is going to bring, right? Because Topps has limited sets, right? They don't have an abundance of sets. They don't have 50 different subsets, right? You have Topps, you have Bowman Sterling, Dynasty, right? You can almost count them on one or two hands. It's not an abundance of different sets that you're chasing. So it's going to be interesting what this new kind of realm of card collecting is going to bring. And what other companies did they buy? I know it's Topps, right? But who else is going to have licensed cards outside of them?
So if I was Topps, if I was Fanatics, and I give free advice to everybody. I charge for nothing. But if I were Topps, what I would do, and you make a bunch of it if you want, but I would have maximum of 4 releases per sport. And they can't do it, right? They can't do it. They just already they know they can't do it because they got to print and they got to make money and the revenue's got to be there. But I would do it at every different price level. You know what I mean? Like, you would have your Topps Chrome. I would work out some kind of a deal with Upper Deck where there's a licensing deal where they're able to do exquisite. They can print Upper Deck's golf cards for them. They can, because Fanatics owns all the printing presses now too. They make all the cards. So they can come up with some sort of a licensing deal where they come out with an exquisite. They do your Topps Chrome. You have your traditional brands. You bring back metal. Right? They can even make metal like kids metal, like a metal at a price point where like kids can do it. Because metal, in 1995, when I was opening metal, it was in Dwayne Reed. It was in drugstores. It was $1 a pack, the first metal. Right? And it was nothing. Nobody cared about it until the PMGs.
That's correct.
All right, everybody run to eBay and buy Willie Mays cards. Jeez.
Oh, right,
wow. Tyson's Corner cards. Just throw it out there. Yeah. Guys, I'm going to jump off. That's what I would do with my Fanatics. I mean, we'll see what they do. Obviously, what we've seen so far is that there's no shortage of product that's going to come out. When they actually have the licenses, we'll see what happens, and, we'll go from there. But, the question that needs to be answered, you say, is the hobby for kids anymore? The real question is, what should kids be buying to hold? Because I don't know what the answer to that is. So,
and that's we talk about the faces of the leagues, right? We do talk about those in other episodes, and we talked about who is the next LeBron James for the NBA, right? We talk about who's the next Tom Brady, right? And we kind of see that a little bit with Patrick Mahomes, right? And then we see in baseball, like everybody wanted to get behind Mike Trout, but he can't stay healthy, right? And we're talking about the big 3. But yeah, RIP to Willie Mays. And I know we're going to get a little off topic here, but some really insightful stuff about Willie Mays and Golden's, season 2, where they really talked about a lot of, the older generation players, and Willie Mays being kin to Barry Bonds, and, who they felt were the greatest of all times, greatest all around probably player, and Willie Mays. So definitely RIP to him.
Yeah. Well, I will say this when it comes to kids in the hobby anymore, to answer your question, Kazler, before you go, what I tell my friends, because I consider new people into the space, even though they're not physically a kid, they're a kid in the hobby mentally, they don't know what to collect. So at this point, just keep churning and burning until you figure it out. And I think that's the solution you have to kind of go with, because here's the thing: if you're churning and burning, now you can afford to level your money up to buy the cards that are worth holding on to. So as you continue to see the exquisite Jordans diminish and the 90 inserts Jordans diminish, hey, okay, hey, what's up? You want to say hi? Ooh.
The future of the hobby.
Little
There you
Prizm
go.
God right here. There you go.
The
All right,
hobby's for kids. That's it.
so
Put an exclamation point on it.
there you
Done.
go. So like he has to be educated on what to collect, but you know, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. And if you have friends or family, I suggest you educate them as well. So we'll kind of leave it with that. The next topic, I know you got to go, Cage, but it's
Thank you, guys.
why are people afraid of comps?
You gotta go, Cage. I know you got some gems though.
It's like, is anyone afraid of being? I'm sorry. Is anyone afraid of being the new comp? Is actually technically the topic. All right. I want to make sure he wasn't around. Is anyone afraid of being the new comp? Man.
I do. Before you want to say that, man, I
Go
want to
ahead.
say, wow, look at all the interaction that we have from YouTube. I know we have a lot on Instagram and the other various channels
Yep.
that we broadcast on. But man, shout out to Lonnie, right?
Yeah.
Unbreakable Sports Cards,
Yeah.
huge.
Damien.
Like he's one of the
Mike Baker.
biggest motivational guys to us, man. He shouts us out in our
Yep.
DMs and tell us how great of a job we're doing, even if we feel like we're not doing the best of jobs. So ABA, Damien, right? We see
Yep.
Chewy Francisco, Real Music, like man, it just gives me like the biggest smile just to see all the interaction and all the new faces
Yep.
that are joining us. And we say it all the time. You could be anywhere, but you're here with us, right? And you're listening to what we have to say. And hopefully there's something that we said today that resonated with you. And again, if you have more questions in regards to anything that we said, and maybe you want us to elaborate on something that you had a question on and may not have, asked it in the chat, feel free to reach out to us, man, and we'll give, our unfiltered advice or suggestions in regards to those questions.
That's correct. All right. So without further ado, man, I feel like we talked about a whole lot. Then we had special guests. It's crazy. That was the first time we actually had an
Impromptu.
impromptu special guest, because I feel like that's what cost us most of our time. And then
But he's knowledgeable as heck, man. I
I know,
appreciate Cage for coming on here, man. And
yeah,
usually he's a lot more controversial, right? But man, some of the gems that he was laying down in regards to the space and kind of where it could go and what needs
yep,
to happen, right? The free advice that he was giving, man. Shout out to Cage for hopping on and giving us those gems.
absolutely, absolutely, man. So, is anyone afraid of being the new comp? As basketball, reason why this topic, we're gonna end with this topic. We're gonna make this probably a little bit shorter, and I mean, you guys can definitely ask us any questions that you may have. But the reason why this conversation is important, because as basketball is out and football is up next, what are people buying? And is any people afraid of being the new comps? Because here's the thing: if something's running parallel to you, like if you own a card and something's running parallel to you owning the card, it's very possible that card could sell for more than the last comp. So, and then you just kind of have to pay attention to the trends and see what's going on. But the reason why it resonates with me is because I own a few cards and I own a few football cards. And as I say my price to people, people are like, well, last comp was this.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that? What's your take?
First off, Nikeli Collectibles, thank you for being your first time here at the show. Thank you for liking and
Hey,
subscribing.
thank you.
Yes, it is a
Yes,
weekly
it is
show.
a weekly show. Yes.
We make it our best effort to do every week at the same time. So Tuesday,
8
8
p.m.
p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Central. And I don't even know my math for the West Coast, but definitely is a weekly show, and we try to bring new topics each and every week to talk about.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us. In regards to the comp, here goes the problem, right? It's the world that we live in. And again, I talked about it last week, is the percentage chasers, right? They're the only thing that they have to go off of is a short-sighted. What does Card Ladder say? What does 130 Point say? What does
Yep.
eBay completed listings say? What does Alt say in regards to this? So, I mean, I don't want to bash them too much, but there is a lot of short sightedness in regards to that,
It is.
right? If you talk to more seasoned collectors out there, they'll say, don't be afraid to be the comp, right?
Exactly.
Yes, it's down today, but tomorrow it's going to be up. So do you want to be behind the curve or do you want to be ahead of the curve? Right. And so for me, right, sometimes, right, as a collector, I'm not afraid to be the comp, right? Because you know
Absolutely.
what? That just means that my card is going to be more valuable now, right? Because now there's a new comp, right? And then on top of that, there's only so many cards that come around that you're only going to be able to have at that period of time, right? Because nine times out of 10, a card that I'm chasing isn't a card that's going to be mainstream that you're going to see 100 times over. And so to me, right, here goes the thing, right? Grading, right? Before repackers, grading screwed up the hobby, right? And I say screwed up because nobody wanted a card unless it was a PSA 10, right?
Correct.
Nobody could see the value in modern PSA 9s anymore, even though the odds of getting a PSA 9 nowadays is probably pretty hard and not as hard as getting a PSA 10, right? But it's all profit driven at that point, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about turning a quick buck with short sightedness. And I think Wiz says it all the time, modern day traders, right? There's no people that are looking for long term, long run investments. And so I think it's not bad to be the comp, right? And honestly, from a collector's realm, right? It's like buy what you like, right? Regardless of if the card is worth $10 million or $2, right?
Yeah.
Buy what you like, and comps really never come into play. The only time comps really come into play is when you're trying to make a quick buck, right?
Hmm.
And so for me, right, unless you're trying to buy that expensive card, like you said, and they keep saying the last comp was 11,000, right? That only means to me that they're not willing to hold the card, right? They're just trying to flip it over for a quick buck, right? And so for me, it's like, well, this card's probably not for you, right? Because there's going to be somebody out there that's going to buy the card and they're going to see that, hey, it's worth more, a lot more than what it's worth right now. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my take.
No, that's absolutely right. I always tell people when you're looking at comps, comps are just markers to give you an idea of what to pay. That is not. Here's the thing: if it's something that's really, really rare, Ken Golden just mentioned on the past show, I think it was the SGC 5. Honus Wagner probably sold. No, I think it was no, it might have been what was it? What did we see? I forgot. Oh, the PSA 10 Mickey Mantle. Did you see that yet? And on the Golden show on
The 20
Netflix?
million? Yeah, 20 million.
Yeah. What did that guy pay for it? You remember? He said he paid 250,000 for it.
Nah, I forget how much he said, man. I don't think he
So
said he put a number on what he paid for it, but I
I
think
think
that whole stack it was like 10 million.
yeah, but he said he did mention what he actually paid for it. But the point of what I'm sitting there saying to you is you have to
I
have
think
the hindsight.
the mantle he said he paid 2.5 million is what he said he paid for it.
So he paid 2.5 million for it, and it's worth 25 million now, or
Yeah,
something like that.
correct.
So the reality is you have to have the hindsight. Before he bought that card, I'm pretty sure he probably was the new comp. Not sitting here saying that every card's going to be that scenario, but you'll kind of know the blue chip cards to stick with. And I think that's where we talked about in the previous statement when it comes to the hobby for kids. A lot of these kids or new people that come into the space have no clue what to buy. I tell my friends and family that are new to the space, keep churning and burning, and you'll figure it out. It's certain, and I'll tell you what card if you pick up a card. I mean that the limited logos exquisite Jordan that Wiz and Mike picked up, amazing card. Auto wasn't great, but guess what? It still was an amazing card
Yeah.
because it's a little limited logos exquisite Jordan. I don't know the next time they're gonna get one. So I think that when you buy, you have to buy rarity in cards and the right stuff. So and you'll figure that stuff out. But that's my 2 cents with being the new comp. So what'd you think?
Nah, look, I guess you went back a little bit about kids in the hobby. I think if you start doing blind tests, right, and what card's worth more and what card's worth less, right? Because some
Yeah,
of the new parallels that they have, like Revolution, like eye appeal on it is amazing, but it's not worth anything,
yeah,
right? And so it's one of those things where the hobby is saying because it's a cheap product, it's not worth anything,
yeah,
right? And so I think if we get away from the conversation of saying that because it's not worth X amount of dollars, that means it's trash,
yeah,
right? Like if we revert a little bit back to collect the players that you like, right? Where
I
if you
agree, but
pull
buy
a
blue chip though. I think you got to buy blue chip. I think you can't like you buying Kobe. You didn't just buy regular Kobe cards, man. I seen the cards you had,
That was look, my
but
goal, my goal is I had 3,000 different, right, unique Kobe Bryant cards, and it got a
okay.
little higher after that. And the majority of them was I was going through each year and trying to get one of each card that was made, right? And of course, that
Mm-hmm.
was a ton of base cards and a ton of parallels,
Yeah,
right? Like I was never a big auto guy, and still to this day, I'm not a real auto guy. I was a parallel guy because I like shiny stuff, right? And I like patches, the different patches, right?
got
That
you.
was my cup of tea, right? Obviously, everybody is a little different, but to me, I wanted to collect every card that Kobe Bryant ever had, right? And I wanted to collect the parallels, right? The Topps Chrome refractors, right? The shiny stuff. And so that was what me as a collector, that's what resonated to me, and that was what I went. And it was a ton of base cards, right?
Mm.
I tell you about the stories where like the guy who introduced me to the space, like he grew up in a world, right, where it was the 50s and 60s manuals that he was pulling out the cards that nobody knew that they would amount to the prices that they were today. And so
Mm-hmm.
he would take out the cards, right? And he would sleeve every card, right? Because what he learned was it's not the card today, it's the card tomorrow. And the most important thing about a card's value is the condition that it's in.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's about what did it last sell for as opposed to what does it mean to you, right? What is your favorite
It's no
players? What is the
story.
so, I mean, like I said, to me, collecting is always about the story. It's always about what could be. I think nowadays we don't have that phase for people to really collect long term. I think the LeBron Jameses of the world are too prehistoric, right? And I think he came into the league at the perfect time where some of the players that came after him, because it's such in your face, right? Because technology and because the internet, like you can look up instantly stats. Before, right? You would have to wait for ESPN to come on, right? And watch
Yep.
ESPN and watch the top 10 every day to see who made the hurrah plays and then rush to eBay and buy the stuff. And like I said, now people are so turned off from game to game or season to season where there's nobody that you can really hold on to anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like look at Kevin Durant. He's a top 10 probably player ever, and his card prices don't reflect it, right? And a lot of it is because what have you done for me lately, right? And I
Mm.
think that that's a maybe one of the worst trends of where our hobby is heading towards, and we have to find a way to reel it back.
So is that your final thoughts for today?
That is my final thought, man. I talked enough for today.
There you go. Thank you. All right. I'm not going to say too much after that, but I will say, guys that are actually watching, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll answer them real quickly as much as possible. But I will say this for the people who are actually still watching, I'm actually going to release to you guys first dibs on the special hat. So if you look at the code that's actually on the screen, it
Does
gives
it
you
work?
access. It actually gives you access to the first collaboration Culture Collision and New Era hat. It actually is a really cool hat. It's actually a New Era hat. It's actually a White Sox hat, believe it or not. But it was something I was working on. Like, being honest with you, I've been working on this project for 8 months. It took me 8 months to put this project together. Cool thing is the C actually glows in the dark. Um, the concept for it, honestly, the concept for it was never home but always repping. Reason why that resonates with me is because I'm from Chicago. I live in Atlanta. We came out with a show named Culture Collision Trade Show. I'm a part of the sneaker culture, so I also I love sneakers. That's why the glow aspect of it. But because of who I am and what I've become in this space and in the city, I always try to keep it grounded and keep it closer to home. So I also got the original green for the Braves too. So it's a really cool hat, man. It also comes with a really cool hat pin as well. I don't have the hat pins yet, but anybody that actually pre-orders with me, you'll get your stuff in the next couple of weeks. So appreciate you guys supporting. I'm gonna leave that up for a little while longer. If anybody wants to support, feel free. But you also have access to it early because I'm actually releasing this stuff tomorrow. I don't have a whole lot of them. It's a very, very, very light release. It's probably less than 10 of each size, and they're all fitted. So That's my little two. That's my final thoughts for today.
Yeah, so link down below does work, right? So if you don't get any sales, it ain't because the link didn't work.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and the other thing that I'll add is we'll actually be in Miami this weekend for the Hobby Slam trade card show.
Yep.
So if you are in the area or plan to attend, feel free to stop by and say hello. Take a
Yes.
picture, right? My beard will probably be a little more freshened up.
Oh, me
But
too.
man, I like the new hats, right? I am a new hat guy now because of Chewy. Chewy, it's all
Yep,
your fault.
Chewy. That's
And
it.
so it's actually inspired the new Culture Collision hat. Um, I did buy one myself, right? I am a fan, I am a supporter, right? So it's not going to be gifted to me, man. I'm more than happy to pay his asking
I
price.
know
I
you
think
you
it's
bought
more
it.
than fair with the pin. I think it's going to be fire, man. And again, Cards Across America, another new face that I hadn't seen before.
He's in Dallas.
Yes, I feel the same exact way. PSA 9 equals Raw has lost their mind. I shake my head all the time, man. Being a dude that looks at cards
Yeah.
every day and condition of cards, they're just not made to be PSA 9s. They're not made to be PSA 10s. So when you
Yep.
get them, that's the reason why you're paying the premium, right?
Yep.
And to me, the fact that a raw card goes more than a PSA 9 and not even taking into account the grading cost that goes into making that PSA 9 is beyond me. So I said that was my final thought, but that's my final thought too.
Hey, look.
Hopefully you sell out on hats tonight.
Oh man, that'd be amazing. But check this out, guys. If you don't have any questions for us, good night.
Good night.
And next week, join us. Make sure if you're not clicked and subscribe to the channel, make sure you click and subscribe to the channel. Next week, we're gonna have Chris Costa. If you've never met him before, he's a really cool guy in the hobby. He's responsible for the shows out there in Boston. It's called the Causeway Show. He also does the Fenway Show. This guy's a pretty amazing individual. He also owns the Card Vault. That's out there in Boston as well. This guy's really connected, and we're going to talk to this guy about what makes him successful, and hopefully you guys can learn from his story. And on that note, good night. You ready for we got to do the outro?
I think so.
All right, we'll do the outro. Peace. All right, you want to say bye? Yeah.
Yes, yes.